implies a curve. Pero once you add this, it implies a sharp edge. So it's going to depend on what you're trying to do, whether or not you're going to add pixels here. So tatanggalin natin yun muna. So we're taking out the jagged lines here. So makikita mo mas nagsusmoothen siya, nagbumukha siyang curve.
Okay.
Right? So here we're gonna take these out. And yeah, that just makes everything much, much smoother. Right? Now, like I said, we are off to a good start here. Okay? So, ano ang next concern natin? So, ang next concern natin is going to be readability. Now, you already did a good job with simplifying, pero there are things that we can further simplify. So, for example, yung lines na to, I understand these dots here are meant to imply the detail that's on this part of the outfit. Pero we can actually take that out, and then we can make this part here. So I'm assuming this is the part where yung part ng jacket na black.
Yes.
Right? So we can simplify this into just one large black shape with one line there, and then you have that one part na may cross. And that makes these shapes easier to read. Okay? So when you are working with smaller sprites, always rely on large clusters of pixels. So pag sinabi kong large clusters, meaning pixels that are like put together in large quantities. So medyo sparingly mo gagamitin yung mga ganito. Right? Although, yeah, we can actually add a few lines here. I think it will still work. Yeah. And I think that will be pretty readable. Again, we're going to avoid jagged lines if we don't need them. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think you're off to a good start here. So just to recap, smaller sprites mean focus on smaller clusters of pixels, and larger clusters of pixels pala. Avoid jagged lines and focus on readability, and should be good. Okay, any questions?
Yung sa part po kasi ng hammer, parang
Okay.
I found it difficult po kasi na ipakita na hinahawakan po niya yung hammer. That's why po naglagay ako ng mga ganun na parang white details sa part na yun. Just to show na yun nga, hinahawakan niya yung hammer sa harapan niya. Ayun.
Okay. Pero naka-side view siya, di ba? Dito siya nakaharap, di ba?
Yes.
Okay. I think I see the issue here. So, ito yung my next point, which is something I'm going to bring up eventually sa works nyo, is when you're doing pixel art like this, when it's very small, you're not necessarily following yung usual na rules natin for perspective, which is, yung horizon line, vanishing point, di ba? If you still remember your gam draw, about 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, if we're working with very small sprites, we don't really usually follow that. Diba? Pag naglaro ka ng game na top-down yung view, like old Pokemon games, wala namang vanishing point dun. It's all top-down, diba? Isometric tactical RPGs, ganun din, walang vanishing point. So, when you're working with pixel art and you don't follow, or you don't have to follow the usual quote-unquote rules, then you're going to rely on overlapping. So pag sinabi kong overlapping, basically, it's knowing what part of the character is in front of which. Okay? So gagawa ako ng copy. Ito. I'm just gonna make a second version na i-edit natin. And I'm going to base this mostly on yung second image mo. Kasi may dalawa kang reference image dito eh. Like the other one is parang chibi eh. Di ba?
Yes.
So, uh, so I'm gonna base it on that. And one of the reasons why I want to base it on that is very clear yung shapes niya. So I'm going to think in terms of shapes here. Okay? And I'm also going to think in terms of overlapping. So pag sinabi ko overlap, for example, if one object, if there's this object here and then you have another object here, then kahit wala kang perspective grid, wala kang vanishing point, or whatever it is that we used to use, malinaw sa'yo na ito yung nasa harapan. Okay? Kasi what's happening here right now actually is parang medyo nahihirapan ka, I'm assuming nahihirapan ka to convey that this character is facing this way. Kasi ang gusto mo mangyari is that the hammer looks like it's in front of him, pero the rest of the body feels like it's facing the viewer. Okay? Pero kung papansinin mo yung reference mo na pangalawang image, it's facing, like the entire body is facing to the right. Okay? And yung ganito kasing view, medyo ano to eh, medyo daya to. Kasi if you see someone who's actually standing facing to the right, hindi mo makikita yung ganun kalaking part ng body niya. Diba? It's most of the body is going to be facing the right. So this is kind of a cheat. Madalas gamitin yan sa 2D fighting games. So for example, if you look at Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, deliberately nilang ino-orient yung body to face a little bit to the front, kahit hindi normal na humarap ng ganun, just to have that 2D look while still being in 3D. So, medyo matagal explain yan, so I recommend look if you're curious how they did that. So now, ang gagawin ko, we're going to take out the arms here. Hindi ko na gagawin itong sobrang linis pero we're just gonna take out the arms for now. And then we're gonna reorient some of these parts. Okay, so wala na tayong arms. So, since this is facing to the right, so magkakaroon tayo ng, i-move natin yung hood dito. And then you have that strap, dun sa, yung black na strap sa shoulder niya. And we're gonna put it here. So that is going to make it clear na this part of the body is oriented this way. We're gonna move some parts as well. So we're gonna move etong parang cross na shape na to, we're gonna move it here. We're gonna make one end longer para clear na nakaharap siya dito. Okay. And then we're gonna add that white part here na may red na line. So basically, we want it to be clear na this character is facing this way, right? Now, we're going to make a new layer on top. And this time, we're going to draw the right arm, right? So yung right arm, we're going to draw this shape here. And we're going to make sure na, kasi dito hindi siya naka-overlap masyado eh. So we're going to make sure that this shape is overlapping. Now, para mas ma-bring out natin yung silhouette ng hand, we can actually just make outlines here. So usog natin to ng konti. We can make an outline here. Siguro baba natin tong. Actually tanggalin na natin to kasi mukhang matatakpan naman siya nung handle ng hammer. Right? So we can add white here just to serve as an outline. Okay. Pero ang goal natin dito is to make sure na it's clear that this is in front. So, instead of making it stand like that, ibe-bend natin siya ng konti. We can also add a line here just to indicate na nagbe-bend yung arm. That way. Tapos nandito yung handle ng hammer. And then we can do the same here. So, dito nagkakaroon ng issue tong part na to ng shoulder. If you look closely at the reference material mo, it actually peaks outside like this. So parang may triangle. And then we have that big hand once again. Or, pwede natin i-separate to. We can just draw the arm here. So very clear na this part of the body is overlapping this second arm here. So we can go back to our front layer and then we can add this hand here. Again, we can use white to indicate an outline para mapakita mo na the hammer is actually in front. And then you can use the shapes once again. Tayo sa ilalim ulit. Doing it in different layers. You can use shape once again to indicate where the legs are and where the feet are. Again, basta may clear sign of overlap. And then you can do the same here. So mas malinaw na nakaharap dito yung character mo. Okay. Also, I think we made this a little too big, so I'm just going to tone it down. Basta ang mahalaga, malinaw na nag-overlap pa rin siya. Is this clear so far, EJ?
Yes po.
So, yun. The way you make parts overlap already already has a very big influence on how you're going to perceive it. Kasi hindi tayo sumusunod sa actual perspective rules. Eh. Also, syempre, kiklean up pa natin yan. We have to remove jagged lines we don't need. Or kung gusto mo talagang maging makapal yung line na to, that's okay. Pero yeah, the way things are oriented, kung ano yung pinaka-overlap mo, it easily affects how sprites that are this small are being viewed. Okay, so any questions so far, EJ? Okay na tayo.
Okay na po. Salamat.
Okay, so moving on kay David. Sorry, David, can you say something again? Or David here? Wala kang mic today? Wala pala, bumabiyay ka. Sige, pero you can hear me fine? Okay. If I remember correctly, pinatry ko sa yung i-gawing side view eh. So, let me just grab that file. Ayun. Hey, this is better. Okay, this is much better. Uh, titingin na ako ng actual na picture ni Rob. Okay, so alright. So I can tell medyo inedit na yung design just to make it fit yung sprite. Pero we have to make that orientation clear. Uh, so, wait, naka-lock ba yun? Yan. Teka, i-merge ko na lang lahat para, para madali. So, flatten. Oops, nasama yung sketch. Teka, delete muna natin yung sketch layer. Okay, then, flatten. Oops. There we go. Okay, so, yeah, so a few changes here would be, so pareho kayo nung actually kaya ako gusto i-bring up yung overlapping kasi dito. Kasi right now, this body is in the front view pero yung arms and yung head naka-side view. So, it's best to adjust this to fit yung gusto nating gawin. Right? So, pwede natin gawin dito, we can take this, move it a little bit here. Yung arm na to, take it, move it a little bit here. Diba? So that makes more sense. Right? Kasi it's supposed to be a quarter view. So ito, move natin ng konti here. So kapag mag-edit kayo ng pixel art na you're going to move things around or rescale things, be prepared to do a lot of cleanup after. Kasi maapektuhan yung arrangement ng pixels. So, yeah, we want to do that, but we also want to make it clear that this is where the body ends. Okay? And then we want to take this arm here. Gawa tayo ng layer sa ilalim para uh, mausog natin ng konti. Just to make it clear na there is that overlap that's happening. Okay? So we're also going to do the same here. We're going to move some stuff here. Sa baba. Okay? Now, more can remove some of the extra details here just to make it easier, and also remove jagged lines. I think we can make this more squarish para lang mas may space yung visor niya. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions, David? Clear naman tayo? Okay, so yeah, ingat ka sa biyahe mo. Okay, so moving on kay, sino ba after ni David? Joaquin?
Here, sir.
Alright. Okay. Pose is a little better. Pero I want you to try uh, if you remember yung Ryu example natin, di ba? The faces are still very expressive. So I want you to move a little more towards that direction, right? So maybe play around with the proportions here, and have a more expressive uh, sprite. Okay. Also, uh, the proportions are way off. So a good way of handling this is to figure out first where the hands are going to be. Just gonna make this a little bigger. So a good way of handling gesture, if you guys are having trouble with gestures, is to figure out where the hand is going to be, and you can connect, create shapes that connect the hand to the torso. And then from there, you can add lines that indicate overlap.
Sir, may I ask if you can post the recording of this session to
Sure,
Discord, sir?
sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So yeah, pero yeah, you can come up with a more. I think you can come up with something better here. Pero you're on the right track compared to dun sa last time, right? So try to go for something more expressive, uh, and yeah, that's pretty much it. At least for now. Are we clear?
Yes, sir, very much, sir.
All right. Okay. So after
I mean,
ni, sorry,
sir,
sure.
I forgot. Can you? I sent another one as a slight joke for like thoughts on it, sir.
Wait.
A, I made a duck with pants.
Ikaw rin ba to? Wait. Uh, you know, I would actually accept this as submission for the first activity. Pero, uh, okay, credit where credit is due. I noticed that you were also shifting your hues pagdating dito sa shadows, which is good that you're doing that from the start. So I understand you're sending me this as a joke, pero uh, it actually works well. So uh, a few notes lang is that if you notice yung color ng shadow ng pants, or I don't know if this is intentional or if this is intended to be the color of the shadow, pero hindi nagbabago yung value. So if this is supposed to be shadow, you have to adjust the value a little bit just to make it clear that this is supposed to be shadow. You can actually
Sir,
keep.
it was intended to as that as a shadow, but I was slightly torn if it should be too dark or too light, sir.
Kasi ang naging problem is it's intended to be shadow but it's almost at the exact same place value-wise. Kaya nagbe-blend siya. So you have to make it darker.
Uh, Okay, sir.
So yeah, the same goes for this part here. You can make it a little bit darker, and you can make it reflect the shape a little more. You can also add this as add some anti-aliasing for this. But other than that, yeah, this one actually works well.
Sir, may I submit this as activity too, sir?
Yung activity 2 kasi you have to try different line art din eh. Pero you can submit this as activity 1. I'll accept this as activity 1 if you
Sir,
want.
I sent yung other one as activity one, yung first doc.
Okay. All right. So yeah, pero yeah, just make sure you're checking uh
Value, sir.
your values.
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
had to
So
go with that.
right. So any questions so far?
Answer. Thank you, sir.
All right. So moving on kay Arion. Arion, pa-confirm that you're there.
Hello, thank you, sir.
Hey. All right. So there are 4 files here. So let me just get them all first.
The other files are just different iterations of that one. I'm just gonna ask questions about it.
Okay. Wait. One, two. Sige. Did you also send the reference image that you used?
Oh, wait. I haven't sent it. Oh, wait, let me send. Uh, here. There. She's Tao Kaka from Blaze Blue. Eh.
Okay. Sige. So I'm just gonna try to combine all of this into one file na lang, just so.
Sure. And then that one's just like my first attempt. Like that's Pikachu from Pokemon. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
send the reference of that one.
Sige. So let me just make a bigger version of this. So we're just gonna put these next to each other. All right. So I think like part of this is I don't know, like these parts are very well done. Pero there are parts that are a bit confusing. Like this is meant to be
The hair.
yung hair, diba?
Yeah.
So uh, first, there is that bias na we are biased towards showing detail, especially if what we're looking at is more detailed than what the resolution we're working in allows, because this is very small. So if you want to add this,
Mhm.
then I suggest you remove all of the extra lines and just focus on uh, like the shape of the hair without all of this parang checkerboard pattern that you're doing. Kasi ang goal natin is readability. Okay, so if you're looking at that, imagine looking at this image from afar, yung reference image I mean, you're not going to see all of those braids, di ba? So it's better to just actually parang kahit isa lang yung inabas mo eh, di ba? And it's also better to exaggerate that. Right? Kasi di ba may parang ano siya sa dulo. Okay? And then, i-line art mo na lang kung gusto mo. Right? That makes it clearer. Now, my next point is, again, avoid using jagged lines. Be careful in that. Especially if a character is meant to be more rounded. My next point is avoid lines that you might not really need. Diba? So the more we simplify this, the more readable it becomes. In fact, pwede mo rin gawin na you can take out the outlines here. Just put the brown part there
Oh.
just to make it readable. So, ang goal natin lagi is readability. Okay? And my last point is nawawala yung isang pinaka-important part of the character, which is yung glowing eyes, which
Oh,
you
actually,
actually
as
have.
sir, I don't know how to put the face.
Yeah, may ano ka naman, you have, I think you have enough space here to put that in. Right? You have enough space to put that in. Pag zoom out mo. So yeah, it's more of taking out unnecessary details, avoid using jagged lines, and simplifying what you can simplify.
Okay, sir.
So, really, in these first activities, yun yung magiging adjustment nyo is making things simple, right? Or simplifying things, simplifying shapes, simplifying appearances. Kasi, uh, parang ironic na, oh, this is going to be easier because it's going to be simpler. And then it turns out, hindi ganun kadali mag-simplify or mag-abstract ng isang bagay. Okay? Are we clear so far, Arian?
Yes po, sir.
Any questions so far?
No naman, sir. You answered all my questions.
Okay, that's good. So, moving on kay... Sino after mo? Ay, hindi, wait. May isa ka pang file sinend.
Oh, yes, the Pokemon.
Okay. Pwede pa send nung ano nito? Yung original reference na to.
Yes. Tingnan ko natin mag-send kasi it's a WebP file. I don't know how to make this not a WebP file.
Hindi, i-screenshot mo na lang.
Okay.
Okay. So, yung ano, yung actually may mga gumagawa ng ano, maraming gumagawa ng kukuha sila ng modern day na Pokemon and they'll try to pixel art it in the style of Gen 1 or Gen 2. So, a lot of people are doing that, so I think that's
Also the
actually
attempt. My attempt.
yeah. So, ang ano lang dito is this is going well so far. I think this one we can flip. Pero ito lang part na to nagpapagulo kasi hindi clear if this is the eye or this is the eye. So you just have to move. I think you just have to move this little spike here. Also, avoid adding highlights sa edges because it flattens things when you add highlights there. Okay. Kasi yung spikes niya are not really spikes in the sense that it's not really sharp and it's actually more rounded. And if you're looking at rounded objects, imagine mo circle or sphere, then the highlights will usually show up like that. Hindi sa edge nung ano, hindi sa edge ng object. If you want to make it longer, you can make it longer, pero it's never going to be on the edge. So don't put it there. Other than that, yeah, this is going pretty well. So yeah, tuloy lang. Okay. So moving on, sino ba after ni ano? Arian, si Isa. Isa, are you there?
Yes, sir. Hi, sir.
All right, so nahin natin si Kratos. Okay, this is good. I think we can simplify the hand a bit more. We can actually even make it bigger if you want. Pero I'm going to accept this na. Kasi I'm more concerned with the new one that you sent. Yeah, pero yeah, I can make this a bit bigger. Pero yeah, I'll accept this na. Although medyo weird na ganyan yung hawak niya sa axe. So I think siguro just fix how he's holding the axe. And then, yeah, we're good. Kasi I'm more concerned with this new one, which is yung Bowser. Okay, so first of all, good job with this so far. Taas ng ano dito, details dito. So, yeah. May ilang bagay lang tayo na kailangan ayusin. So first, when you're adding shadows, always shift your hues. So if it's going to be shadow, then shift your hues closer to purple. So if you remember, hue, saturation, tsaka value, that's the three things that we look at when it comes to color. Now, if you're using a sprite, basically, tong bar na to. So for those of you who are not art track students, if you're not sure about what I'm talking about, this is hue. Itong bar na ginagawa ko sa baba, this is hue. Basically, hue is pretty much the color. If the hue is red or blue or green, so yun yung color na ginagamit natin. So crash course lang tayo. Although I covered this in sa color video. Now, value is the lightness and darkness of an image. So ito yung value, light going to dark. So if your value is at 100, it's going to be pure white. If it's at 0, it's going to be pure black. Okay. So if you move this side to side, this is hue. If you move this up and down, this is value. If you move this left to right, this is saturation. So ito yung saturated na green, ito yung desaturated na green. Okay, so basically how vibrant that color is, how saturated that color is. So that being said, when you are applying shadows, ang natural thing to do is to darken the value. But you should also shift your hue a little closer to purple. So, for example, this is the yellow base color. If you're going to add shadows, i-move mo siya closer to purple, which is going this way. Kasi nandito yung purple eh. Diba? So, paikot siya. So, you're going to move this a little bit this way. And, oops, sumobra tayo. Walang exact formula to. You're just going to try different ways of doing it. And what you're going to see is it's going to be a bit more vibrant when you look at the shadows. So the same, we're going to do the same here. Okay. Now, an easier way to do this actually is to go to Edit, Replace Color. You select the color that you're replacing, select the color you're replacing it to, and click OK. And then there you go. So, makikita mo, this is starting to look a bit more vibrant than the ones that are here sa kanan. Right? So we're also going to do that here. We're going to shift this a little bit closer to purple. And the result is just something that's more vibrant. Now, if on the flip side, if you're doing highlights, you're going to shift it closer to yellow. Right? So kung ano yung hue na malapit sa yellow, that's what you're gonna shift it to. But yeah, this is hindi mo may imagine at first na ganun kalaki yung change na magagawa niya. Like this one. So itong green a shadow, we're going to move this a little closer to blue because that's closer to purple. And you get something that is much more vibrant. So, makita mo yung difference from the left side to the right side? Okay? Right, so yung next point, and tama-tama, andyan na yung reference natin. So, at the moment, you have a tendency to add outlines to everything, which means you're thinking more in terms of black lines, diba? Which I know is pretty much your style. Kasi naging student kita sa Concart. I remember your work sa Concart. So that is pretty much what you usually do, diba? Very cartoony, thick outlines.
That's right, sir.
Yeah. So ngayon, medyo i-break natin yan ng konti. Not because it's bad, but it's because we have very limited amount of space to work with. Okay. So this time, I need you to think in terms of shape. So I'm gonna give you an example. If you've seen yung itsura ni Mario, right? So I'm gonna get a Mario image here. Okay. So yung design ni Mario at the moment is very iconic. Right? Parang unang kita mo pa lang, alam mo na kung sino siya, di ba? And particularly the mustache. Right? Yung mustache parang part na ng malaking part na ng trademark look niya yan. Now, if you look at Mario's sprite, so hindi na ako kuha ng sprite sheet. I'm just gonna get this image here. But if you look at Mario's sprite, the reason why Mario has a mustache is because ayaw nila mag-drawing ng bibig because there's really a very limited amount of space to do the sprite for Mario. So to avoid drawing a mouth, ang ginawa nila, this one line of pixels here, they just turn it into a mustache, and then diretsong chin na niya to, nose, mustache, chin, and as a viewer, you see that, and you already immediately assume that there's a mouth in between. Okay? So binawasan nila yung outline, and they just thought about it in terms of shape to get that. Okay? So ano kinalaman nun dito sa work mo? Kasi dito, because Bowser has very clear separations of shapes, right? You can get away with taking out some of these black outlines. We're going to reserve the black outlines for areas that really need it, right? Like yung outline of the entire character, right? So we can take out these black outlines if we don't need them. So ito, pwede natin siya iwan dito to show na this is overlapping. Pero if we can take out outlines like here, for example, and the character is still readable, then bukod sa mas nalinis natin, kasi sobrang dami na ng black lines na nakikita natin, it already affects how we're looking at things. Right? Because sobrang contrast. And we can substitute this. If we still want to have dark outlines here, we can substitute yung color ng shadows as a way of adding outlines here. If we want to have dark outlines pa rin. Yes?
I tried doing that with the other versions. Like,
Yeah, these ones.
yeah. Like, I'm not sure if that's right still.
I think you can lighten that a little bit more. Pero I also want you to notice na since we took out black outlines there, right? Ito, kahit hindi natin lagyan ng outline, we actually open up a lot more space. So you can add a lot more details like a more expressive eye, right? Now, ang last point ko for this is when you are doing rendering, right? Uh, buuin natin to. I think this will work at buo. When you are working with a sprite this small, think of it in terms of uh, large clusters of pixels, and also think of it as rounded objects or rounded materials. So if you remember yung discussion natin of the sphere way back, some other subject, I have that's the sphere, ito yung light area, ito yung shadow area, and the area that's in shadow actually wraps around the form of the object, and then you have a highlight there or something. So when you're drawing Bowser, and most of Mario, the Mario cast actually is like this. Most of them are built with rounded shapes. Right? So when you are rendering, when you are adding lighting, it's best to think of them as rounded objects. For example, itong part na to ng leg is pretty much not getting any light. Also, we can take out the outlines here. So it's going to follow, the shadow is going to follow the shape of the leg. And then you have your outline or your highlight here. And kahit isang pixel na yung highlight, that's enough. Right? And kasi napansin ko, may tendency to put highlights on the edges. And what that's going to do is it's going to flatten the image a little bit. So, minsan ang answer sa ganitong problem is to just simplify. If you notice, most of this leg in the reference image is in shadow anyway. So you can just fill the entire thing with shadow. Yeah, so we're just it's best to just keep things as simple as possible. Right? So if we zoom this out, it's starting to get a little more readable than this last two. Yeah, so yeah, there are parts that we can simplify even more. But yeah, that's basically it. Do you have any questions so far?
So basically, sir, less black outlines and make it more simplified.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
And the shadows, yeah.
Yeah, so you can actually simplify parts of this more, put parts of this more in shadow, like over here. And notice how the more we cluster the pixels together, the more, the easier it is to read what we are looking at. Is everything clear so far, Isa?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
None so far. Thank you.
Right. Pero all that aside, good work so far. Kasi it kind of feels like you challenged yourself in this one.
Yeah,
So-
it was an interesting challenge, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, keep it up. Tuloy-tuloy lang. You're on the right track naman. Okay, so after ni